guys are on. Thank you for joining us. And Pastor Dino will be on shortly. He may already be on. I see Phil Klein, my homie, is on. Phil, I'm going to pitch it to you in about 45 seconds. And I'm going to ask you, this is Phil on the spot. I'm going to ask you for about 2 minutes and then I'm going to pitch it to Jimn Kyles, and then we'll get Pastor Dino going. But I'm going to ask you about some of the best practices that you've seen or something that we need to focus on in this season. You actually gave, I think it was was it the first call that Phil was on? The first call that you were on, and you could actually say the same thing. You said something about if you weren't doing it good before. Remember that, Phil? Yeah. All right, kind of recap that, because I think that will help us. And we got a lot of new people on the call right now.
Right. So thank you, Pastor. Great to be here. So I think what I said was, and it's just an important process, if you will, is God gave you a vision. You were growing your church and reaching people before, and you were doing it based on the strengths and how you're built and the vision God gave you. Then this big thing comes along in the crisis, and it causes a lot of what seemingly are new opportunities out there. And we tend to reach for things and try to do things that didn't exist before. And in the time of crisis is probably not the right time to build new muscles and build new strengths. You have to rely on the strengths you had before and just do more of that and change the how, meaning the what doesn't change, the how has to change. And you guys I'm not the only person saying this or the first person to say it, but there is just a natural gravitational pull to start doing things. Hey, I'm going to open up the world's greatest food bank. If you don't have a crew that's ever done that before, it may not be your wheelhouse. You might want to partner with people. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things. So it's the same model we've always used, is look for existing resources that you can join. If you don't have a wheelhouse, but you have a need, then look for partners you can join in with versus doing a bunch of stuff. You know, if you didn't have the world's most amazing online ministry before, you're probably not going to do that, but you need to get functional, make it happen, partner with somebody, use other resources. Does that make sense? That's
brilliant. It helped me so much whenever whenever you first said that. I think it was the first weekend, because the temptation is, man, we better get up to speed. And truthfully, pastors follow pastors on social media. We follow pastors, we follow other churches, we follow other ministries, and we see something that somebody else is doing, and immediately, I don't know about you guys, but my first thought is, why aren't we doing that? They're amazing. We should be doing that. Team, let's go do that. And then the team's like, oh dear God, we're just trying to hold together the ship that we have built, and you want us to actually go do something brand new. So it's really good for us to hear that. Hey, just slow down, take a deep breath. Whatever you were doing before, just keep doing that and try to keep doing that at a high level. Obviously, all of us had to get really good virtually. We'll wait another couple of minutes for everybody to jump on. And while we're waiting for everybody to jump on, I'm excited to have Dino Rizzo with us today. He's a beast. But before we do that, before we jump in with Dino, I want to pitch it to Jimn Kyles. Jim pastors here in Houston. In fact, I got a lot of my Houston brotherhood on here. I love my Houston people. And he pastors a phenomenal church in the southern area of Houston, southwestern side of Houston. And I did something a couple of weeks ago that I felt like was amazing. You did a food giveaway, a grocery giveaway, and a drive-in service. Now, a lot of us have thought about doing that, and now as we're opening slow, some of us are actually able to get into our churches. Others of us are in portable church environments, and we're actually going to talk a lot about that today, about portable church environments and how to handle that. But I actually thought that was a phenomenal idea, maybe to do once a month, or maybe a couple times in the summer, a drive-in service, because people are actually, frankly, still nervous about getting out and going to church. And so, Jim, just walk us through that. Tell us what you did. Take about 2 minutes and tell us what you did, man.
Yeah, well, first off, Jeremy, let me just say thank you for doing these roundtables. You've been a huge resource to me, and I know all the pastors on the call. And Phil Klein, you are a beast, and all my H-Town brothers, it's good to see each and every one of you. Can't wait to gather again in person. Yeah, Jeremy, I think, the whole premise of it is, like you said, we're trying to rally people together And when we did it a couple of weeks ago, we didn't even have the option to gather physically together outside of really that option. And so what we recognized, and just like all the people on the call, is that it's one thing for us to be a part of church in our living rooms. It's another thing when we gather in one location. And so building that synergy, building that camaraderie, and the fact that, hey, I'm still a part of something, and there are other people that are gathering with me, because we can say it, but it's different when you see it. And I think for us, the main point of it, some guys have talked about, well, we want to reach our city. I think that if we reach our people, we will reach our city. Sometimes we go for the other and then neglect what God has given to us. And so we just started sending out emails to the county judge. We sent an email to the Commissioner Morales. And we went at it from the perspective of everyone needs hope. So we called it a Hope Initiative, a Sunday of Hope. And then we got one of the biggest parking lots we have here in our cities, in our community, the Wharton County Junior College. And so it was great. We partnered with Ray, Ray. He was able to get us the stage and all the equipment that we needed for the outdoor venue. And so we felt like it was a huge win. One of the things that we did LED walls, and we hung them up high so that every car in the parking lot, and we did an LED wall in the overflow, could have a good view of the stage. And then we did it through we did number one through speakers, but then secondly through FM transmitter, so that you could listen to it in the car. And if you're going to do a drive-in church, I would recommend you doing it with the FM transmitter, because then they can turn it on in their car and it feels like it's in stereo, plus they can hear the outside. And so it was a huge win. People were excited. I'll tell you what it did for our people as well. It re-engaged some of the ones that were unable to engage or were slow to engage through Zoom calls and some of the other modes of reconnecting that we have, it was just great. And people weeping, crying, you don't even realize what you miss until you get back to it. You're like, wow, I really have missed seeing people. And so we felt like it was a huge win, and I would recommend it if you could do it. It's not cheap. And so you just got to weigh the cost. But I'm with you. I told our team, if we're not able to meet again, because we're portable like you in a school, we'll probably do it again to regather and rally, because it's a huge opportunity to win for us. So, and
it's automatic social distancing. I mean, people are in cars, and you did it well. If anybody wants to see it, go look at their setup. It was raining. You guys dealt with some rain and still did it at a high level. And of course, you guys do ministry at a high level. And I know we have people that are outside of the Houston area on here. Thank you guys for being on here. And if it's your first time on the call, basically the heartbeat of this thing is just to whatever we have, we're going to give away. So if you haven't been to hopecity.com/roundtable, go there, hopecity.com/roundtable. They'll put it in the chat. And everything that we have that we've learned from this season, not everything, but everything that we can at this point get structured and online, we're putting it online. I think that's what the church should be doing right now, just sharing as much as we can. And nobody, when I say nobody, I mean nobody has done that better than ARC, the Association of Related Churches. And Dino leads ARC, and it's such a blessing to me. Dino, you've been a blessing to me for a long time, bro. I mean, I remember hearing you talk about Servolution, and at first I was like, what's Servolution? And then I was like, oh, it's a serve revolution. Hello. And but not only is it something you talk about, it's something you do every day. Pastor Chris Hodges calls you Father Teresa, because you ain't found somebody that you ain't gonna serve. And I love that. When I've walked through super hard seasons in my life, you not only gave me access, but you put your arms around me and said, hey, you're gonna make it through this. I love you. And I'm just so grateful to have you on today. So basically what we want you to do is take it away. Talk to us about whatever's on your heart. You can talk about serving. You can talk about church planning. We have a lot of church planners on here. We have a lot of portable church guys on here and gals on here. We got people that have been pastoring for 20, 30 years on here too. So just whatever approach you want to take, and then we'll jump into some Q&A. I'm just glad you're on here. And also, to Jim's point, I'm super relational. That's why this is not webinar style. And I mean, I guess if we got to a certain point where it was webinar style, it's fine, but I'm ADD. So I like scrolling through and seeing everybody's faces and being like, what's up? I didn't know you were on the call. I see Tyler Whaley. What's up? I didn't know you were on the call. It's just cool to see people. So hopefully, I know you're a little ADD too, Dino. Hopefully that doesn't distract you. Hopefully it empowers you and fires you up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Pastor Dino Rizzo.
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm like you, Pastor Jeremy. I'm looking at everybody. You got some great leaders on here. I mean, when I clicked on and saw Phil Klein, I just was like, I'm backing off, man. It's like Jordan. And I see Dave's got some Jordan background there, who's my guy, The Last Dance. And so Phil Klein's like, Jordan, why am I getting in the game? Why you even, coach, why are you even looking at me? I'm going to stay on the bench. And of course, you got other great leaders on here. Josh Joins is a dear friend, and on. You got just on and on. I was looking through here and seeing all the guys. I'm like you. I could scroll the whole time and see a lot of my buddies, and then hear from Jim of what they're doing is just phenomenal. I think that's the heart of God, and so I appreciate you. I appreciate how you resource people, how you are extremely generous. Just so you know, guys, there's probably not a time that I've ever called Pastor Jeremy or the team there, Carla and the team, and I see my boy Van Burskirk there. That's my dog. And but I've never called you guys and asked for something. You've said, not sure, hit me back later. I mean, you guys are some of the most generous people on the planet. And so, and I think that gives you such, along with the way you communicate, along with your leadership style, along with all that you bring to the table, I think that just verifies leadership is when someone's generous. I don't want to be around a stingy leader. I don't care how good a leader they are. I don't want to be around a leader that's brilliant, but yet they're selfish. Don't want to do that. And so I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the H-Town guys, how y'all stood together, and you're such a vital part of ARC and Grow and so many other things. Y'all represent a lot of things. So love you, Jeremy, and honor you and your leadership and what you bring to the body. You mean a lot to our pastor, Chris Hodges. You mean a lot to ARC, to grow into the world. So I'm honored to be on here. I was like, God, when you asked me to do this, man, brother, I got some goosebumps. I mean, you got some high level stratosphere brothers up on here, and I'm riding a small pony, man. I ain't riding a thoroughbred, so it's high level stuff, dog. But here's I got a verse that's been wrecking me lately, and I just want to share it, and then we'll talk about some things. I just want to share this verse. It's an interesting verse for right now. It's Psalms 107. Verses 23 and 24. Now somebody's going to get a hold of this and kill it. And I'm not there yet. It's still in the crock pot. And so it's still marinating. Since I was in Louisiana, we marinate everything. Some of you brothers know that. And, but here's the verse. It says, they that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters. And it says this, these see the works of the Lord and his wonders in the deep. And so I've been getting up every morning, Pastor Jeremy, and just getting a word from God. I need a fresh word. Every day I need a fresh word. Man, we got to help churches. We got to resource people. Got to do an outreach. Got to talk to somebody. Got to lead myself. Got to lead my family. Got to lead, got to cook. Got to do some stuff today. And every day I try to get a word. I try to get a verse. And sometimes I get stuck on one. I've been stuck on this because here's my prayer. Lord, help me to learn how to do the gospel business, the church business in great waters, in deep waters. I believe we are sailing in uncertain waters today that we've never sailed in. And can I tell you something? There ain't a lot of maps. And I think pastors sometimes, we love a good map because we got a map. We lay out the map. Hey, everybody, here's the map. Here's what we're doing. Here's where we're going. And sometimes if we're not careful, Jeremy, we think the map is the way. No, a map is to a way. It's not the way. So a map just shows you how to get to somewhere, but it's not where you're going. And think about this, maps change, and maps are very subjective. Maps are normally not to scale. Maps, as soon as you make a map, it's almost not true because something changed that day. There was a road put in. There was a road construction. And it's just a theory and a thought that I have is that right now there are not a lot of maps. And when you're on the water, there's not street signs. There's not roads. There's not a sign that says this way to Houston, this way to Kansas. Here's Elm Lane. You just are trying to navigate. And I think pastors and leaders have got to be comfortable navigating and knowing that this is a voyage, knowing that we got to do a lot of tacking. We got to constantly adjust the compass right now because everything is changing. Is my middle school going to open up? when are we gonna have church? What's church gonna look like? What's the restrictions gonna be? How's my dream team doing? I think you have to be comfortable. And I think God built us to be comfortable on a voyage, navigating. And so I've been praying, God, help me to be a leader that can pilot the ship during this fluid time. And I'm not sure, Jeremy, that it's ever going to not be fluid. I think we like to be in control. I think we like maps. And I'm not real sure God likes those maps, because the destination is not the destination. And you think about this, I'll say this. Sometimes when the thing about sailing is you got to get a reference point, and you just find some reference point. Our reference point, and normally when you're sailing or you don't know what you're doing, most people say, hey, find the North Star. That ain't moving. It's the North Star. Jesus is the North Star. The Bible is the North Star. So even though, and Jesus never gave us a map. He didn't say, okay, on Tuesday during the COVID virus, you need to do a Zoom call. That's, Luke 48, verse 11. It didn't say in the book of Acts, hey, Acts, 32, verse 8, launch a campus. He doesn't give us those things. He doesn't say do a drive-through feeding. He doesn't say reach your nursing home. He doesn't say when to hire a staff. He doesn't say, hey, add a service. But we do have some reference points, and it is Jesus. And it's always been about Jesus. So we got to find that. And then you just begin to sail. And sometimes you're on course. Sometimes you need to adjust small groups. Sometimes you need to adjust service times. And here's the good thing is you don't have to sail alone. There's some people like yourself. There's roundtables. There's great guys that are learning. Hey, man, I sailed these waters before. Now they could have changed a little bit, but I've sailed through these waters, and I kind of know how the wind and the waves are going to do. So we are called to be the gospel ship that is sailing in a fluid culture to rescue, catch this, Jeffrey, people that are drifting and drowning, that have no hope with Jesus. And sometimes we just need to find kind of the North Star, need to learn how to work our compass, got to figure out some gauges that sometimes are custom to us, because one guy has a permanent building and he's going to move in differently than a person who's at a theater. Someone is established for 10 years. I mean, Jeremy, we got guys that have planted 3 weeks before the virus, where they're navigating it differently. They got to navigate their seas differently than Church of the Highlands. We got permanent locations, but we do have 5 that meet in schools. But our school system may be different than the school system that's in Raleigh or the school system that's in Portland. So I think if you to be okay with knowing that Jesus is the captain of the ship, he's our North Star. And we may be a little off course, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And so I think that's why, and you know what, I think, Jeremy, that's why I love working with the community, because the community is unpredictable. Church can be predictable. Man, I can tell people in church what to do. Y'all go to a small group. Y'all come to church at 10 o'clock. You come join the dream team. We got dream team today at 3 o'clock. I mean, I could do that. Community people, oh, no. Lost people, crazy. The community is nuts. And sometimes because it's uncertain, it's unknown, we choose not to engage the community, because I like predictable, I like control. I like when I walk in a room, everybody doing what they're supposed to do, because I'm the man. I'm not the man in the community. I'm just there offering hope. So that's why I've always loved community. I've always loved serving, engaging the community, as Helen's saying, because it's just so fun. When we planted our church in Baton Rouge, after about 3 weeks, I got bored doing churchy duties. Like, okay, I got it. And we immediately started figuring out, how do we engage broken people? Because it's so much funner than just doing church. And thank God for churches like yours, other people on this call, because you've decided to be very spiritual. And I want you to hear this word in the right way, but also very secular. That what you do in the spiritual relates to the business person, relates to the poor, relates to the hurting. So we are very good in church, but thank God we're good in community too. We're not afraid to engage those fighting addiction. We're not afraid to do a food drive for the elderly. We're not afraid to do something that could be a little organized chaos, may get a little crazy. And we're just not afraid to do that because we're okay with sometimes being a little seasick. Sometimes the waves and the wind being a little uncertain, but we know that, hey, we're headed somewhere. And I just want to encourage every pastor, listen, we don't have all the answers. We don't know how everything's going to turn out, but I believe that you're headed somewhere. And I believe God's going to help you navigate these waters. And some of you are in waters you've never been in before, but that's okay. You're not the only one. And we're going to get there together. And in the meantime, we're going to engage our community, and we're going to let people know that they matter. There are a lot of people right now that have reduced opportunities. And so we're going to engage those that have reduced. They can't get to the store. I mean, there's people in our country, they don't know what Shipt is. They don't know what that is. What's DoorDash? I mean, they live in communities. You do DoorDash, brother, going to get robbed. I mean, we don't bring me no food to my house. Don't try to bring me groceries. I mean, I lived in a trailer park for 10 years. You bring Shipt up in that trailer park, it's called a stolen car. And so I may get my milk, but your car going to get stolen. I mean, there are people with reduced opportunities that do not have the opportunities of someone else. So as a church, that's what we're doing right now for the elderly, for the most vulnerable. And we're having a blast. So that's my thought for the day. I don't know if that makes sense.
Man, that was so good, bro. Of course, anything that you give is always going to be good. That's just a massive blessing just to hear from you. And I think for a lot of us, it's just good to hear a strong voice saying, hey, you're going to be all right. None of us know what to do right now. Anybody who's acting like they got it figured out, they ain't got it figured out. None of us know what to do. It's all fluid right now. A question that I want you to speak to, because you've mentioned it a ton, and it's a part of who you are, and that is serving. I know that serving is crucial during this season. What's your advice for a church that doesn't have a ton of resources? Maybe not a big, maybe it's not a church over 1,000. Maybe it's a church under 1,000. What would your advice be to how they can act now that we've got kind of our footing under us? Okay, we've kind of figured out maybe how to do church on the weekend, and we're figuring that out. We don't know what's going to happen, when we're going to be able to get back together, how that's going to operate. But how do we best serve our community in this season?
Well, there's not a lot of churches over 1,000. Let me just say that. That's a big number. When you get 1,000 to 2,000, you're in thin air. There's just not a lot of them. And so to God be the glory for anyone who gets to that point in their church. You should thank Jesus every day. And I think that it's, a lot of times there is outreach doesn't cost a lot of money. And I think what everybody's realizing is, I think the church has been praying, hey, we've all preached, church is not a service. We're not a building. Well, we're getting the opportunity now to live that out. And so everything we wished for and we prayed for when we had our locations, we're getting that opportunity. And it's not a service. It's like small groups. Small groups have a meeting, but they're not a meeting. Church has a service, but it's not a service. The service is huge. The service, the preaching of the gospel, and you, Pastor Jeremy, standing on a stage or whatever, but you've realized you've been just as effective with what you're doing now. And so, but we are about the Great Commission. So I think the scoreboard changes a little bit, and it's about the Great Commission. And so I could see that is happening so much, and the church is doing so well in that area. And outreach doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I don't think a serve has ever been, it has an event, but a serve is not an event. Serve has a serve day, but serve is not a serve day. Serve day is every day. We were in our meeting this week with Pastor Chris, and we're going over the calendar, the changing summer and motion and grow and all this stuff. And somebody said, well, what does serve day look like? And he said the perfect answer. It looks like today. It looks like tomorrow. We're serving every day. It's just what we do. It's organic. And it's amazing when you release the body. I think the people do better than we give them credit. I think the body of Christ does well. The people of God do well. And it's tough that we're not meeting. It's tough that they're not seeing their pastor in person, but they can live, they can make it. And when you trust the body of Christ and you trust the people of God, they do well. And so I love the organic outreach that's taking place. which is just neighbor to neighbor. It's street to street. It's person to person. I love the technology outreaches that we're doing, where we're checking on people. We're doing Zoom calls. We're caring for people. And then I love the organized thing, what like Jim talked about, what Brandon Barber is doing, what some other guys, what Van Burskirk is doing. Just being able to figure out a way, whether it's reaching the elderly, it's groceries, it's partnering with our food bank. The first outreach we did when I was in Baton Rouge was $16. We had no money. We were broke like crazy. I remember doing outreaches for $8, for $20. Just let me tell you something. You get a lot at the dollar store for $100. Give me $100, let me go to Dollar General. Brother, come up with an outreach. I'm telling you right now. Brother will find something to do. Let me go to a dollar store. I will hook that neighborhood up. And so it's just those small things. And we put out some stuff on the ARC site, and then we do the Serve Your City and Servolution website. The serveday.com has lists and lists and lists. Serveday.com. This is the most current ones that these are so creative outreaches. You know, we've got City Life Church in Florida that is that's going out to truck stops and dropping off little care packets for truckers because the truck stops are open. You've got a cap and gown drive-through at Piedmont Chapel in North Carolina, where they did where they put people in cars and they lined the road and waved at all the graduates. There is a couple student ministries took every senior and blew up their graduation picture and lined it on the high school fence, just doing things like that. There's all the things that people are planning for Mother's Day, which is right around the corner, where there is, you know, where you can do gift cards, you can do gas vouchers, you can do grocery vouchers. I know we're going to do some projects for some moms that are going through struggles, single moms, military wives. We're going to go to their home. We're delivering a washer and dryer. You do those things great, Jeremy. No one does that better than you. We're mailing gifts to widows. We're putting a little text to give at the end where we say, if you have a need. Now, hey, I can't roof your house, but I could move a load of dirt from your front yard to your backyard. So let us know if you have a need, and we'll integrate it into our serve that we're doing with our teams and our small groups. So there's just things like that where, you know, there's virtual recovery groups. A lot of people are fighting addiction right now. So why not focus on that in some of your Zoom groups, maybe partnering with some of your treatment centers or domestic violence centers that, again, the ones that are the most vulnerable in your community. Right now, I found this out this week, Jeremy. I thought this was amazing what this church is doing, a Daytona Dream Center in Florida. The dialysis patients right now, it is a struggle right now because many of them are either having to do it at home, they're having to create new ways to do that, dropping off care packets and groceries for patients that are receiving dialysis treatment. Again, these are all just ideas that people come up with, because when you release when you give them permission to be the hands and feet of Jesus, there is some amazing ideas that will come out.
That's phenomenal. Something that we said very early on in our church, and Phil alluded to it in the beginning, and that is, we are a missional organization on a mission, but we can't do every mission. Like we don't have the ability to create a food bank right now because we don't even have a building. I mean, we have some buildings. They're not ready. They just came to us in the last year. And so we can partner with other ministries who are already doing that. In fact, we've become one of the #1 volunteers for the Houston Food Bank. Whenever they need food delivered, we're delivering the food. And what's crazy is we're getting the win. Like, people are like, you guys are crushing it, but we're not paying any money to just go deliver the food. So we're mobilizing the volunteers. So I would tell you, especially, let's say you have 100 people in your church. Here's what I would tell you. If I have 100 people in my church, I have access to maybe 70 of those or 60 of those people that would be volunteers, that would be ready, and people are ready to get out and do something right now, Dino. They are ready to do something. Well, guess what? There are a lot of organizations in town that would go crazy if you told them, I'm going to bring you 50 volunteers today. There's going to be 50 volunteers tomorrow. They would go nuts. So I think sometimes, and I've talked to our team about it, sometimes we think so big that we forget to think small, because 20 volunteers at a local food bank changes their life, man. And then what we do is we just make sure that we're taking pictures and that we're making sure that we're getting that story out there to our church so that your church can be proud of you during this season. Hey, another question came in. I think it's a really good question. It's kind of changing gears a little bit, but you're dealing with so many church planners right now. And the question is, when we go back, obviously most of us, unless you're just wilding out, we're going to go back with social distancing of some sort. And right now, we can't go back for at least 6 more weeks. We know that with the schools that we're dealing with. But are you hearing that guys are going back with kids ministry, or what are you hearing when it comes to that kind of thing with kids ministry specifically? Children.
Well, you're hearing everything, everyone's having to adapt. I think a big word that you're hearing right now in leadership is pivot. You're having to pivot constantly. You're having to adapt constantly. We're having to do mid-course adjustments. Hey, we're headed this way. You're having to call audibles at the line, Jeremy. You call a play in the huddle. You get to the line. All of a sudden, there's a different defense. Brandon Barber knows all about this. Brother played football. And you're having to look and read your defense and say, whoa, check. And the whole play changes. You have to be comfortable with that. I think you're going to have to be comfortable with that as you get ready to do in-person gatherings. People are saying, okay, is this a reopening a campus, relaunching a campus? What I'm hearing, I think smaller churches can do it differently than larger churches. I think once you have a church of 500 to 1,000, and when you start getting up into those thousands, that's a different situation, because we're not church, we're an event. You have to follow an event idea, not just, hey, when they say we're opening churches, I think when the governor and the people say that, they're not thinking about what we do. They're thinking about in a different context. So, do you want to have church where you're doing, touchless temperatures? Okay, you got a 102 temperature, you can't come in. Mask, sit in 3 feet apart. Your family can't sit together. Children are with you. Some people feel okay doing that. At Highlands, we're not trying to do that. We're going to try to wait till the restrictions are lifted, because what we're doing is winning. We are accomplishing the Great Commission without a meeting right now, without an in-person meeting. Our online meetings are working. They are winning. So people are being engaged. People are getting saved. People are being generous. We're caring. Our span of care. We may be caring for people now better than we've ever cared for them. So our span of care is working. As Phil teaches us, our organizational health is pretty good right now. People are taking next steps. People are being discipled. So the Great Commission is winning. So we're not going to try to do restricted gatherings. And again, we don't even know if we want to go back if we have some of our campuses that are not open. So we've met about this. We did an art deal yesterday about some of that. And I think Greg Surratt at Seacoast is kind of in the same boat. They're trying to figure out how do we lift some of these restrictions. Some of our auditoriums would be okay if they were 50% full, and some of them would not be okay if they're 50% full. So I think everybody's got to figure that out for themselves. But we're not looking forward to doing church with children and not having children's ministry. We're gonna probably wait it out a little bit. We won't be the last ones to go back to church from a Highland standpoint, and we won't be the first ones. So we want to go back from a position of strength. So that's how we're trying to figure that out, Jeremy.
Yeah, momentum is you can't buy momentum. If you have it, it's awesome. I heard of a guy who relaunched his church, kind of restarted, reopened, whatever word you want to use, about 4 weeks ago now. And he is a church of about 270. The first weekend he had about 70 people. The next weekend he had about 60 people. And the week I hadn't checked up, but the final week he had like 15 or 20 people. Because at the end of the day, they want to go back, they want to get out, but they're thinking of themselves and their family. They want you to restart the church, but they're like, we'll decide whether we come or not. I want to see you doing it, but I don't know if I'm gonna be there yet. And so I think time is on our side. I love the approach that Jim is using to do the gathering with the social distance, a parking lot type church, along with a missional endeavor there to give groceries. I think, Jim, you did it as people could bring groceries and then people could give groceries as well. Dino, you're dealing with a lot of pastors who are portable. What about when you lose your location or your location is very uncertain? Are you hearing guys think of different ideas of different places they can go? I know Mitch Rose is on the call, and the theater that he was in, they've gone out of business. They've gone bankrupt. So, what do we tell guys like that? I mean, we're all portable, and we know of a couple of our schools that are just like, we don't know yet. You'll just have to wait. And so we're kind of up in the air. What are you telling guys that are up in the air on location?
We're telling them, because that's happening a lot. We've got 38 churches planned to launch in the fall. So they've not even started yet. So we're telling them three things: push to the new year, push a couple weeks, or some of them want to launch online. They're going to start an online church before they start a physical location. There's a lot of guys that had a physical location. Now they have it online. And when they go back, they'll have 2 campuses now, wherever they end up physically, and an online location. So they have 2 campuses now. And so one of the things that we're a couple of things. Number one, God's not surprised. God knew all this was going to happen. And so he's in control. And the other thing would be, you were creative in launching the church. You're not where you're at now without being creative, without being a hustler, without being innovative, without being able to figure it out. And I think what's next is going to be to figure it out. And so a lot of times you take one step to get to another step. So we're telling guys, what we're hearing from theaters that are in business, they are going to be very friendly to the church world because they need money. Schools, everywhere's 50-50. They don't know if they want a contractual agreement. They don't know if they want to have to clean up on Sunday and not Friday. And then someone come in and now they got to sanitize the whole school again. And that's understandable. I think that there are other things, maybe business. I think there are pop-up ideas. There are some businesses. There's going to be some we've already been talking to some guys. There's some people that are going out of business right now that all of a sudden they're going to need a tenant. They're going to need someone popping in their location. It may be pop-up. It may, hey, we're going to move here for 6 months because we can move into this, whatever this store is, this sports academy or this standalone or this, strip mall area. So we're telling them to be creative, to listen to what other people are doing, to make your calls, do your homework. Just like in planning a church, you want to hang out with the fraternity of church planters. Be aggressive on finding out what other people are doing. Next Thursday, we're going to do a call with 3 church planters that planted in the last couple of years. The whole thing is about portable. The whole thing is about if you're set up and tear down. So I think there's some things that you can broker, get creative. You're a church planter because there's a reason. You're innovative. You're an entrepreneur. So like you, Jeremy, you've never taken off your entrepreneur hat. Don't take it off right now. And don't put on a hat of, we're not a company man right now. We're an entrepreneur. So get creative. I believe there are going to be people that come up with ideas right now that are going to change the game forever. Just like multi-site changed the game. Even back in the day, Jeremy, you remember when we did direct mail, that was a big deal. Who was the first one to think, hey, I believe Jim was one of the first ones to turn the early meetups into like pre-launch parties. Let's have a pre-launch party. He was one of the first guys to say that word party. We had not used that. We had been saying launch team gatherings, practice services. Jim, actually, I think they told me this the other day, Jim, you kind of said, well, I think we're just going to call it kind of a early party. We're going to do a post, pre-party. And it was like, well, now everybody does those. Someone's going to do that in the next 6 months. That's going to change the game. And we're going to help resource them, and we're going to cheer them on, and then we're going to distribute that idea. And all the guys on here that are part of that, we do that now. And again, you've helped lead the way in that, Jeremy.
Well, some great questions coming in, and so I'm going to jump through them fast. First, you said to call next Thursday. Tell us where and what time to be in.
It'll be on the art. It's an art webinar at 1:00. I think Jason Laird's going to host it, and man, he is in a whirlwind. That brother's so deep. He's in deep waters. There ain't nobody even sailed over where he's sailing. Them guys in San Francisco right now, they're talking about not opening it up till the fall. Their mayor is saying things like 2021. He's in a school. He doesn't know if he'll ever go back into that school. I mean, you may now be an online church for 8 months.
Yeah.
But again, God is not surprised. Can you do the Great Commission? What's your scoreboard? I think that's what's messed with everybody, Jeremy. The scoreboard has changed. And what you said is so true. Everybody's in the same boat. Ain't no big churches, ain't no top 100 churches, ain't no it churches, we just churches. And there are guys that have 200 people in the church that I literally have seen do a better job online than a church of 10,000.
Yeah.
Because they were fluid, they could pivot quick. So we're all in it together.
Absolutely. And speaking of we're all in it together, you're one of the best friends that I know. You're just a friend to pastors. How can all of us be better friends right now? And that's a question that come in. How can we be better friends to each other, to the church leaders around us?
Well, you got to get up in the morning and not think about yourself. I mean, I think that is key. We live in a me, myself, and I. Joyce Meyer said it the best. What about me? What about me? What about me? There is no fruit. There is no blessing. So I think you got to get up every morning and think, who can you check on and who in your phone. So I'll do a habit some days, Pastor Jeremy. I just scroll through my phone and stop on a contact. I'll look at C's and I'll start hitting up C's. I'll look at E's and I'll start hitting up E's. And so it's just, I mean, it's just good, just trying to reach out to people, just who needs you, who's hurting, who's walking through things, who's who's fragile right now, who is sensitive, who's having a tough time. And I want to do my best to love them, to care for them, to notice them, to think about them, to put my shoulder up under their load. And it's like that. I mean, I've got some dear friends that we've just decided that we're just going to make sure we do life together. And if I'm not hearing from them, I'm going to call them and roll them up and give them a hard time. I mean, I've got a certain group of friends that if I text you, you don't text me back, I'm a rain down hate on you, because we are friends. So you better hit me back. You know, if I'm hitting you, you're going to hit me. If I can text Chris Hodges and he texts me back, then I can text Brandon and he texts me back. And that, I think there's friends like that. You do that, Jeremy. You've got a lot going on. Your church is exploding, but there's never been a time that I've texted you and you didn't text me back. And I just think that's a priority. It's relationship. It's huge.
That's important. You said something a while ago that I think is important for us. We've shifted the scoreboard, and we've had to shift the scoreboard. You know, a lot of us in the first few weeks, we looked at views. You know, we looked at views. How many people are viewing our service? How many unique IP addresses? And that can get you fired up, especially if you had, 400 people. For us, everything we do is scalable. Okay, so when we can have thousands of people in a weekend, but we might have one campus that is down hundreds, or we have campuses under 1,000. And so we look at everything scalable. And so you can look at it and say, oh man, we had X amount of views, but I don't know that that's really a good benchmark for anything. So what we've started looking at, maybe this will help some of you guys, is we've actually started looking at engagement. Are they actually engaging? I've noticed some people like will turn comments off on something. And my whole thing is they're probably not going to watch it if the comments are off. They want to actually watch. They want to engage. That's what social media is all about. So if they're watching on Facebook, or they're watching on Instagram, or they're watching on YouTube not so much, because people tend to throw that to their main screen in their house. But if they're watching on Facebook and Instagram, there needs to be somebody in there managing that engagement. Something we learned from Todd Mullins. And Dino, you can tell me if you see anybody else doing this, but I thought it was phenomenal. What we're doing now is whenever I say, hey, listen, if you gave your life to Christ, or you want to know more about Jesus, just give us a hand emoji in Facebook or in Instagram or on our church online platform, which if you haven't used the church online platform, please go do that. It's free from Life Church. It's free to us. They're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for it. But when somebody raises their hand in Instagram or Facebook, there's a handle connected to that. There's a username connected to that. And then we're following up with that person, because that's actually a tangible engagement that I can say, okay, so it takes thought on my part whenever we're recording to make sure that I say that, hey, throw that hand emoji up, or throw us the two hands up and let us know that you said yes to Jesus. We're also telling them where they can go, hopecity.com/hope. But a lot of people don't do that. So we actually want to go chase that. So I think that's a good measure. Dino, here's another question. I think it's a really, really great question. All of us have an opportunity to kind of start over. If we're starting over today, what would you advise us to do differently than maybe what we did? We started 5 years ago. I know there's a lot that I would do different now. what would you, because you're talking to church planners from all over the world, all different sizes of churches, what would you advise us to do differently in this season? Because a lot of us are in kind of a reopen phase over the next few months.
Well, I would say don't quit engaging your community. So serving has not been an option right now. It's not like, okay, now we don't have anything to do, so let's go help people. You know, we're kind of, you know, I don't get to preach. I don't get to, you know, I don't get to have church. So, you know, we're kind of, the runner up is we're going to distribute food out of our building. That's such a, you know, such a loss. It's a big L because I don't get to do the other thing. No. What you've always dreamed of is being a church for the community is happening. Don't stop it. Make it a priority. I think there's probably been people that are being realigned in your leadership structure, whether they're volunteers or paid. Some of them may not need to go back to what they were doing. We've realigned a few people on the ARC staff that I have found out that they are leaders in another whole level. Wow. We've done it at Highlands. We've repositioned staff. We've reassigned dream teamers. We've seen people excel during crisis. You know, crisis is bad. This is a bad thing. This is painful. People are dying, but it also opens up opportunities, and some people do it well and some people don't. So I have found a few people that are just making it rain in outreach. Why do I want them to go back to another area when we've just, so there may be some of that that's going on. I think online kids is here to stay. It would be a huge mistake to take children's programming in the online world away, because it is working, you know, and some people are figuring out, Jimmy, and I don't know how this adjusts to everybody, but some people are, you know, a lot of times online service up to this point has been cut on the camera and watches what's happening on stage. And there hasn't been a lot of hosting. There hasn't been the interaction. Not everybody does that well. Like you've always engaged people online well. I think what happens now is you got to figure out, okay, do I want my online expression to be just cut on the camera? Or now that we've got chat, now that we've got ways that people engage us, do I want to keep that? Do I want to do some studio production for the online experience on the weekend? Do I want to host it now? Do I want to pastor it now? Do I see it as a viable campus? So I think there are people that are figuring that out. I think Growth Track probably is changing because of the online opportunities. I think some of the things that we do on demand now is a win that we may want to consider. We need to do that on demand. I don't think Zoom small groups are going away. I think there's some people that just this now, it doesn't mean that they don't connect. It doesn't mean that they don't see people. And I'm dying to see people. I want to hang out with people, but it could still be a viable way for people to connect and for people to have some measure of community. And I think what you said was so important. You may have found a good partner in the community that you now feel like we're supposed to do that, man. My fear is that we've cut on this spigot of serving. We've cut on this faucet of partnering with food banks and partnering with service providers. And then all of a sudden, oh, church is back. Cut the faucet off. I don't know if that's a wise thing. I think you've gotten your dream. Your prayers have been answered. Why would you cut that off now? You may have to modify. You may have to adjust. But I believe this also. I think God's always been popular. I think Jesus has always been popular. I don't know if the church has been really popular at times. I think what's happening to broken humanity is that God's popular, Jesus is popular, and the church, we may give them another chance. They look a little better than they used to. Well, then why would we want to change that?
Amen.
I don't think we should. It's just trying to thinking.
Bro, that's phenomenal.
About to throw my hat and run.
Come on, somebody. That's good stuff. And it's coming from somebody who's done it. And what's funny is you were doing that long before a pandemic forced you to do that. But I love how the church is actually now it's go and tell instead of come and see. And I think we can't go back to come and see. That can be something that we add. But I honestly think where we are right now is primarily where we need to focus. In fact, we're looking at our whole church as we have multiple campuses before this. We got one campus now. It's an online campus. It's literally one campus. And so that's kind of how we're looking at this whole thing. And then we're not doing away with campuses, but when we come back, we're going to focus way more on what we're doing right now because we're reaching more people. I had a question about staff health? How do we stay aware of team health while we're apart? And I'll tell you one of the things that we've done, then I want Dino to answer because he's dealing with a lot of different people. We've set up a 2-tiered system. And by the way, I have had a few guys come on and talk about how they're frustrated with their staff and aggravated with our staff. And I get that. I understand that, because you can find some people that maybe they weren't doing something or they weren't doing something well. I would tell you this: make certain that you're not forcing them to achieve a level of excellence in an environment that is counter to excellence right now. It's really hard to do excellent work right now. So we set up a 2-tiered system. We have tier 1 people, and my team will correct me on this, but we have tier 1 people who are obviously involved in worship, programming, production. They're on the internet. They were already in this world. Then we have tier 2 that we're managing a warehouse, or, high-level dream team members who were head of greeters, and they want to do something. So we're managing them on 2 tiers, which helps us a ton, because on tier 1, that expectation has to remain really high. Tier 2 really has to pivot, and they have to find another spot. Here's what I would tell you. If you have an employee that you're very unhappy with right now, do your best not to fire them in this season. Remember, we're a church. We're a church. We love people. Let's kind of love them through the season. Let's pastor them through the season. Let's try to give them as much grace as we want to be given to us, yet without not confronting, because you'll lose what you won't confront. I think we have to confront it. You have a staff, Dino. You've had a staff. You've had staffs for years. You deal with guys who have it. How are you managing the health of your team while you're apart? And how are you seeing other guys manage the health of their teams while we can't get together?
Well, what you said, I think, is it. You kind of scale it. And, and it's different if you're a smaller church, if you're a church plant. Josh Rover's on this call. He works with our team. So we're doing our best as an organization. He helps all of our church planters right now. He's on the phone every day talking to them. How's your team? How's your team? Keeping them together. And he's a great resource for anybody planting or relaunching. I see other leaders on here. Jordan Smoker. I see my main man, TJ McCormick. I mean, you got some studs on here that we're all having to do it. We're just, man. And I love what you said. Man, it ain't easy right now. Don't, give people a little grace. This ain't easy, man. People are home trying to homeschool, trying to deal with their kids, trying to deal with their finances. Everybody's got a little cabin fever. People can be a little anxious right now, and it's just different. So we've tried to have a lot of grace. We've even done that at Highlands, man. We've got grace right now, man. We want everybody producing, we want everybody hustling, everybody doing their best. But some people don't respond well during things like this, and that's just their nature. So I agree with you. Care. We're doing the staff calls. We're doing the Zoom breakouts. I talk to the lead team twice a week in ARC, the own team. I've still got some of our team stopping by ARC that works at the Highland side of thing, the outreach. We have to talk every week. I'm still seeing, I know Lee Domain. I see Jerry Meek on here. Lee Domain's talking to our legacy guys. I mean, you're just doing your best to stay connected and to keep caring. And whatever works, but I agree. You've got to have some grace. I wouldn't fire anybody right now. I agree with that. Probably not wise. There could be some financial dynamics where you got to furlough a few people. But man, I think everybody's doing their best to lean in. You got to lean into people right now. Don't expect everybody to lean into you. That's a bad aspect anyway. You got to lean into people. And what do people need right now? I love when we were with Carl Lentz. And Carl said that on the phone, Jeremy, I thought was brilliant. Have you thought lately, what do people need right now? I mean, really, what do they need? They need connection. They need some understanding. They need encouragement. They need some stability. They may need a friend. So, just thinking along those lines. It's a good question.
Last question, and then we'll let you go. Thank you for your time.
Sure.
By the way, guys, if you haven't gone to hopecity.com/roundtable and subscribe, you can subscribe for reminders, and we'll let you know who's on next week. I got a couple of big fish on the line that I'm trying to reel in right now, so we'll let you know who's going to be on next week. If you haven't joined in any of the ARC webinars, please do that. They're brilliant. I mean, just phenomenal. And then I would also encourage you to what you see us doing here, do the same thing. Start up a Zoom call with 4 or 5 guys in your community, and maybe you don't talk about anything. Pastor Chris, I was listening to him on the weekend, and he talked about, Dino, you were probably on this, where he called a couple of his buddies and said, listen, let's do a Zoom call, and let's not talk about anything relating to the coronavirus. Let's just tell each other Cajun jokes and laugh and talk about who's getting the most.
Made fun of each other. We made fun of Rick Bezet.
But I think there's something great about that. I got a couple of buddies on here that we're going to be on a Zoom call. I think it's next week, and just laughing and talking and having a good time. So make sure that you're doing that as well, because as much as we need information, man, we just need relationship right now. So here's the last question. I think it's a great one. What's the biggest lesson that you learned in the last 6 weeks? Because everything has changed in the world. I mean, everything. I know I've learned that I wasn't as good as I thought I was, that my team is better than I thought they were, that my team is better than me. Some of them are on here right now, and you are better than me. You're doing amazing. By the way, I love my team, and they're killing it. I'm so proud of them, man. Our dream team is crushing it right now. And I've learned that if I empower them, they'll kill it as long as I'm communicating with them. What's the biggest lesson you've learned, man, as a high-level leader, a world-renowned leader? What's the biggest lesson you've learned in the last 6 weeks?
Well, you're kind, and again, thanks for doing this. I agree. Everybody should be doing these things, and what you've done, what you've offered to people, and what we're trying to do, and just everything you're building, man. The resources that you're offering through Hope City, what we're trying to do through serveday.com, giving ideas, or through the Grow or the ARC. We're trying to do everything we can to give people ideas and to try to figure some things out. And again, if you need ideas for outreach, that's where we bundle those outreach at serveday.com. Jeremy, you've helped us with that. You've always been so generous to the Servolution world. But I think it's a little bit what you're saying. You know what? God's in control, and I need to stay calm, because he's not surprised. And at the end of the day, we preach this, and you can preach it and not live it, that it is truly all about Jesus. This ain't about us. It's never been about us. He uses us, and thank God for every leader on here. They're phenomenal. But we are one clip in a very long film strip of God's plan. And we're a very important clip. But God kind of sees us from A to Z. And it's really, he is the star of the story. He is the theme of the story. And I think being calm with that, this is about Jesus, leading people to Jesus. I'm just a servant. I'm a paper plate. And hey, a very important paper plate. That doesn't make me less. That doesn't mess up my value, my identity, my mental health. I am a paper plate. But I'll tell you he is the entree. And he's the barbecue. He's the roast. He's the brisket. I'm a paper plate. And I think that is what we do. I'll never forget, I'll tell you this, when we went to go see Billy Graham, Rick Bezet and I went to a deal with Samaritan's Purse. We popped up to see Billy, so unexpected. OMG, oh my gosh. We're barely dressed. We go in there to see Billy Graham at his house up in Montclair there on the mountain there. And we walk in, and Billy Graham he's older. Of course, he's got crumbs on him. His buttons aren't right. He's got these like $10 shoes from Walmart Pick and Pay, Velcro shoes. And he's got a cook and one guy there pastoring him. And I remember sitting there thinking, and all he wants to talk about, Jeremy, was his dog. You see my dog? The dog's awesome. You see my dog? You see, throw the ball. We threw the ball. Dog went and got it in his living room. We were asking him all these deep, how did you do it? How did you preach? What your organization? You see my dog? That's a pretty good dog right there, ain't it? And we finally just said, how can we pray for you? And he just said something along the fact that, just pray that I'll be pleasing to the Lord. Dude, oh my God, if you ain't pleasing, I'm going to hell. I ain't got a chance. I am a buckethead. And then he prays for us, humble. And we leave. It's his dog, his cook, and one dude up there praying for him. And I rode down the mountain, Jeremy. I get goosebumps thinking about it, me and Rick. And I'm in the back seat of that car, and I'm mad. This ain't right. And he's preached to the whole world. He's led more people to God than why is he up here by himself? It's like Billy has been forgotten. And in the back seat of that car, I'm telling you, the Holy Ghost spoke to me and said, that's exactly my plan. You thought it was about Billy. It's been about me. It's always about me. So it's not about Billy Graham. It ain't about none of you. It's about me. I use Billy But it just dawned on me, man, it's really about Jesus. This whole thing is about Jesus. So I pray that we are good paper plates during COVID-19 and beyond.
Man, all right. Well, pray for us, man. Pray for us, Dino.
Well, I love you, Jeremy. You're good. You're a good friend. Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the wonderful people on here, the team, the staff, the volunteers, the givers, businessmen. Oh, how could we make it right now without businessmen and women? Thank you, Lord, thank you that people work hard and then they give their tithe, they give their offering so that we can proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ to a world drowning and drifting with no hope. So Lord, thank you that you put us all on this ship, and we're going to do our best to sail well. And we're pointing this thing towards the North Star, Jesus Christ. Thank you for Pastor Jeremy. Thank you for the Hope City team. Thank you for every pastor represented here, and ARC and all their organizations. And Lord, we want to be found faithful. We want to be like Billy Graham. We want to be found faithful to the end. And at the end of our life, Lord, that everything we've done will be one big tapestry that spells Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man, thank you so much, Dino. That was, honestly, bro, that was so good for me. The practical information was phenomenal, but pastoring us was a blessing, man. I just greatly appreciate your friendship. And I would encourage all of you guys and gals on here, reach out to somebody this week. Call a pastor, call a leader in your church. I see Jerry Meek on here, a great friend of mine who's ministered to me.
He's the best.
Ministered to him. Just a wonderful, just reach out to your friends right now. You never know who needs you. And I will tell you this, you reach out to your friend, and I'm talking 5 minutes, 10 minutes on the phone with them, you're going to be better because your soul was designed for connection. In fact, when God created Adam, he looked at him and he said, it's not good for man to be alone. Basically, what he was saying is, Adam, I'm not enough. You need relationships, and we need relationships. So make sure you're connected to ARC, serveday.com. Go just get everything you can and help everybody you can. And I love you guys. We'll be back next Friday. God bless you, man. Thank y'all for being on here. I love you very much. Thank you, Dino. Killed it. So good. Love you guys. I'll see you next week. Love y'all.